Good morning. Welcome to Speak with Moxie 2.0. I'm Fasbinder, and I am delighted to lead you through my webcast this morning. Let's get started. I want to tell you a little bit about the Moxie Institute and about myself. I'm an executive speaker coach and founder of the Moxie Institute. And the Moxie Institute guides executives, organizations, Fortune 500 companies, and TED speakers to convey their message with confidence, clarity, and credibility. I'm delighted to guide you through my Speak with Moxie 2.0 webcast, where you will learn some higher level public speaking theory, as well as some directly applicable presentation skills that you can start using immediately. Throughout the next half hour, please feel free to type any answers to the questions I ask in the chat box. Or if you have any questions for me, type those in as well. I always say the best discussions happen after the webcast, so stick around for some Q&A. So during this webcast, we'll be using the Moxie Method of Effective Public Speaking, which is my public speaking methodology that I developed during my time as a stage actor in New York and honed as a public speaking instructor at UCSD and now as an executive speaker coach. It's time to blow the whistle on speech anxiety, or maybe simply give you some tools that you can use to deliver a more engaging presentation. I always say that public speaking is any time you're not speaking to yourself. So there are plenty of opportunities to apply these communication skills in your business, personal, and everyday life. Now, Moxie is not only a word, which means confidence or swagger, but it's also an acronym for the 5 fundamental ingredients of effective presentations. And because this is a webcast for more advanced speakers, I'll touch on some of the theory behind public speaking, and then for each fundamental, we'll give you a directly applicable activity that you can use in your presentations. So let's dive in. The first letter of Moxie Method is M for move your mouth. So let's talk about moving our mouths a little bit. Your voice is multi-talented. It can sound assertive, humorous, motivational, sympathetic, and it does this through pitch, tone, volume, pacing, and enunciation. Now, many of my clients that are business presenters think that they should have a monotone tone to become authoritative, but actually it only makes you sound boring. A flat delivery never engages your audience. Instead, we need to use vocal variety. Think of this as energizing your presentation or bringing it up to a performance level. Whether you're speaking in person or in front of a camera, you need to tap into that larger-than-life element with your voice in order to captivate your audience. Now, actors know that using a fully expressive voice is the best way to engage their audience. But you don't need to be an actor to do this. I'm always amazed at the before and after effects of using vocal variety on my clients' audiences. So think of your voice in a relaxed situation. I'm sure you have an entire color palette of speaking tools to express passion, amazement, humor, seriousness. The key is to access that color palette during your presentation. Now, there's a historic and seminal study that studies feelings and attitudes as a result of verbal and nonverbal messaging cues. And they studied an audience's perception of a speaker's credibility based on tonality, or how they say their words, nonverbal signals, which is your body language, and content, which is what you say. And what we found is that only 7% of an audience's perception of a speaker's credibility and authority is based on what they say. Only 7%. The remainder is based on how they say their words and body language. And in fact, 38% is based on how you say your words. So think of it in terms of your presentations. How many of you spend 38% of your time working on vocal delivery? Probably not most of you. Probably if you're like most of us, you just wing it and hope your delivery will be good enough. But we know now that that creates weak presentations and undermines our immediate goals for our talks and also our long-term reputations. One of the missing links in communication skills when we talk about vocal variety is vocal communication skills, or what I like to call vocal executive presence, which is how your voice sounds when it's connecting to an audience. Now ask yourself, does your delivery reinforce your message and establish your image that you want, or does it undermine it? What happens if I'm trying to diffuse a tense situation and I say something like, okay everybody, just calm down now, we need to reevaluate the situation? not only do I fuel the fire, but you probably will suggest I switch to decaf. Now, many of my clients say things like, we're very passionate about helping children and improving the quality of education in our schools. But there's a claim of passion and no evidence of it there in their voices. There's a disconnect between what they're saying and how they're saying it. And this is really a problem of credibility. The fact is, if you want to be seen like a leader, then you need to demonstrate vocal executive presence and sound like a leader. Now, most of vocal executive presence comes from how we use our voices. And you might be thinking, well, this is the voice I was born with. I don't have a lot of control over it. But actually, we were all born with a voice, but we can learn to train it to work for us. When Margaret Thatcher became the first woman in British Parliament, she was mocked for her voice because it was shrill and high and squeaky when she would argue a point. But when she ran for Prime Minister, she worked with a coach from the National Theatre who helped her to lower her pitch and sound more authoritative, and it really helped her be perceived as a powerful leader. Now, I want to give you a directly applicable tip that you can use with your voice, and it has to do with emphasis, or what we call strategic tonality. Now, effective speakers know that by emphasizing the most important words in our speech, we can really make our message stand out, and we can give our audience the ability to focus on the most important parts of what we're saying. And it establishes us as a leader from the moment we meet somebody. And I'm going to give you a way to say your name that might help you make a strong first impression. Now, if you want to say your name in a way that helps our brains remember it, here's what you do. When you say your first name, you go up at the end of your first name as if you're saying, I'm not finished yet. Then you have a pause between your first and your last name. And this signifies to our brains it's a word boundary, or there's a break between our first name and our last name. And then our last names go down at the end as if to signify, I'm done now. So my name would sound something like Fia Fasbinder. Fia Fasbinder. Up at the end of the first word, down at the end of the last word, and a break in between the two. So I'm going to give you a chance to say your name this way now. Now, this might feel very strange to you at first, but I would encourage you to try, at least in your presentations, to say your name in a way that lightens the processing load for your audience. I always say, if you're the kind of person that forgets people's names, I'm absolving you of that guilt, because maybe those people have just not been saying their names in a way that helps you remember. So let's go on to the O of the Moxie method, which stands for oxygenate. Now, oxygenate means breathing from your diaphragm, and it's really the path to a stronger voice. Diaphragmatic breathing gives us a full reservoir of air so that we can speak with power. It gives us a voice that projects to the back of a room. It gives us the sound of authority that supports the words until the end of the sentence. Now, most of us use our chests when we breathe, but chest breaths are shallow, less productive type of breathing. As a former actor, I really know the importance of how breathing affects a voice, and I had to learn to use my diaphragm to project a strong voice across a crowded theater. But I never realized how much this training would help me become a powerful public speaker until I gave my first speech. And I can say now that I've taught public speaking for almost a decade that the ability to harness your breath is one of the most important and least taught areas of public speaking. Now, you might be asking why. Now, in everyday lives, our diaphragms are pretty much in a vegetative state because we don't need that extra air in order to get through our day-to-day life. But when we're presenting, we really need to train our diaphragms to work for us. And here's the benefits. When we breathe from our diaphragm, we have a full reservoir of air so that our voice has more power and more volume. It gets more resonant and deeper, it doesn't quiver, and we don't run out of breath and feel breathless. And emotionally and psychologically, diaphragmatic breathing is central to effective public speaking as well, because it calms and centers us. When we flood our bodies and our brain with all that extra oxygen, we lower our heart rate and we feel calmer. So this is the reason why people always say take a deep breath when you're nervous. Now, this might feel awkward at first, but I'm going to tell you that if you keep practicing it, it will get easier and you can train it to work for you. Now, I'm not trying to make you sound like somebody else. That would not be the point of using your diaphragm and your breathing. But it's really about giving your voice power so that the power of your voice matches the power of your words. And if you do that, people will listen. Now, I want to try a breathing exercise with you. We all know when somebody sounds confident or nervous, but what you probably didn't know is that that comes from diaphragmatic breathing or breath support. So I want you to stand with the right posture first, which is your feet. I want you to stand up and stand with your feet shoulder width apart, your weight equally distributed. Now raise your arms over your head and expand your rib cage. Now drop your hands but keep your rib cage expanded. Now I want you to put one hand on your belly button and one hand on your chest and take a deep breath in. And notice which hand moves. I see a lot of people breathing with their chests heaving up and down. But I want you to try to keep your chest steady and think about breathing into your stomach like you have a balloon in there. So when you breathe in, you fill up your balloon. And when you breathe out, you let all that air out of your balloon. And you can hear me breathing audibly. So we breathe in, fill up your balloon, and then breathe out and let all that air out. Now, because we always speak on breath, we're going to try to say a sentence together. And we're going to say it two ways. The first time, I want you to say the sentence, I have something to say, without using your diaphragm. And it probably could sound something like this. I have something to say. Now, put your hand back on your belly, take a deep breath in, and on your exhale say, I have something to say. I'm sure you can hear the difference in my voice. This is the voice we want in a leader. When we speak with breath support, our voices project, they sound more confident, they sound richer, bigger, and more resonant. So I would encourage you to practice training your diaphragm. Try it 2 times a day. 2 times a day, breathing from your diaphragm, speaking on exhale, fill up your balloon, and then say, I have something to say. Eventually, this kind of breathing will become natural and innate to you in your presentations. Let's go on to the X of the Moxie Method, which is excite your audience. I also call this the science of not boring people, because exciting our audience goes far beyond the spoken word. If our presentations were just the spoken word, we could just send reports or documents, but effective presentations amplify the meaning of our words. We are hardwired for face-to-face communication. We've been fine-tuning it for millions of years, and that's what makes it so effective and powerful. So the responsibility to light a fire in our audience really relies on us, the presenter. So how do we do that? How do we excite our audience? Well, I like to do it with the same techniques that actors use, by using body language. Now, people will read your body language to decide if you're trustworthy or an authority in your field. Your body is one of the most important tools you have for communication. In fact, it's the reason that when you deliver a presentation in person, people can be engaged by your presentation. Our physical presence plays an essential role in effective communication. So use your body for physical expression and give a memorable presentation. When you do this, your topic comes alive because you use your body, your gestures, your facial expressions. And I want to pinpoint what I think is the most important tool you can use for body language during this presentation. And that tool is to command the space. So here's how I describe it to clients. When we get nervous, we unconsciously get small, which is the opposite of what we should do. However big or small our presentation space is, we really need to use it. We can move around the entire space. We can feel the excitement of the audience. We can stand front and center. I always say you're important and you have strong ideas to share, so show that in your body. Don't hide behind barriers. Don't hide behind the podium or even furniture for that matter. You can even use a remote control so you can't hide behind your laptop. We always want to be front and center in front of our audience. So this is facing our audience, not the screen behind us. And when I talk about being powerful and being front and center and commanding the space, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about power posing and Amy Cuddy. Now, Amy Cuddy is a Harvard Business School professor and a social psychologist, and she studied power poses, which would be any pose that maximizes the space our body takes up in a room. like Superman or strong wild animals or a peacock or a sun salutation in yoga. These are all power poses. So she did a study where she asks participants to emulate a power pose for 2 minutes a day for an entire month. And after a month, she studied their hormone levels. And what she found is that the people that did the power poses increased their testosterone, which is their power hormone, by up to 25%, and decreased their stress hormone, which is their cortisone, by 25% also. So power hormone up 25%, cortisone or stress hormone down 25%. So how does this translate to public speaking? Well, simply by demonstrating a power pose, we not only appear more powerful to our audience, but we start to feel more powerful. So if we look more powerful and we feel more powerful, we perform better and we appear more confident, enthusiastic, and successful. Amy Cuddy says, our bodies change our minds change our behavior, and our behavior changes our outcome. So equally important, and actors and speech coaches know how to do this, is our body changes how other people perceive us. So simply by adapting one of these power poses, we can be perceived as strong presenters. So let's try an exercise in standing strong. I want everybody to stand with your weight balanced and your chin slightly up so that you can make eye contact. Now I want you to drop your hands to your side and open them up in kind of a welcoming, open stance. Now bring your chest up and consciously open your chest area to the world. Don't wrench your shoulders back, just let them fall into place. Now I want you to straighten the S-curve in your spine by imagining a string that's attached to the middle of your head and it's gently pulling you up to the ceiling. Gently pulling you up to the ceiling. Now I want you to maximize the space your body takes up in the room by opening your chest cavity, standing strong, leaving your hands by your side, and just kind of moving around your room for a second like this. This is called presentation power pose. And this grounded stance in this position of power was a really strong, well-supported position that signals to your audience that you're ready, that you're engaged, that you're stable, and that you're poised. Do you feel the difference in your body? How do you think you appear differently? Excellent. This will not only give you it factor, but it factor is the fourth letter of the Moxie Method. It factor means how do you stand apart from your audience? How do you stand apart from other speakers that might be talking that same day? How do you make yourself memorable? So in my world, the way you do this is rehearsal and preparation. Mark Twain said, it usually takes me more than 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech. And it's true. A speech can seem casual, off the cuff, even relaxed with good preparation, but winging it never works. So how do you get that confidence through rehearsal? Well, most of us don't even think of rehearsing or know how because we don't do this and we're not trained to rehearse or to practice. Actors are trained to rehearse their performances. Can you imagine going to see a Broadway play where the actors didn't rehearse? In fact, they're usually rehearsing for 6 weeks before a presentation or a performance. Now, we can adapt this rehearsal techniques of actors. And it might sound crazy, but remember, you're already a subject matter expert. That's probably why you were hired. Now it's important to take the time to appear like one, and that's what will really give you it factor. So how do we rehearse? Well, there's no such thing as over-rehearsing your material. You don't want to memorize, but you want to know your material inside or out. And this helps you adapt to any unforeseen changes. If you know your material, if you know your topic sentences, if you know your slides, then if something goes wrong, you can really adapt to it quickly without losing your cool. So one of the things that I always say to rehearse is to keep this formula in mind. Rather than spend 100% of your time creating content and 0% of your time practicing, make the ratio 40% of your time creating content and 60% practicing. 40 to 60. This will give you the time and the discipline you need to make sure that you appear like authority and a subject matter expert. So what are the benefits of rehearsal? Well, first of all, rehearsal minimizes our body's sense of danger and our survival instinct by giving us confidence in what comes next in our presentations. We fear what we don't know. So if we know our material and we've rehearsed it, then we can eliminate that fear of the unknown. It's okay to be nervous. I mean, there are many things you cannot control during presentation, and that's scary. But in the days and hours before we present, we can do a lot of things to give us the preparation and the control to control the controllables. And then my favorite benefit of rehearsal is that it safely gives you an opportunity to make mistakes away from your stakeholders in an empty office instead of when people are watching that might be important to the outcome of your sale or your ROI or even your position at that company. This is something I say to my clients all the time. PowerPoint is not your teleprompter. So if you don't want to read off your notes or your slide deck, then it's really important to rehearse because nothing erodes your credibility as a speaker faster than showing an audience that you're dependent on your slides. Speaking from memory can be really difficult, but it can be super effective if done right. It inspires confidence that you know what you're talking about, and it really establishes you as an authority. So if you want to deliver a presentation without notes, I'm going to give you a directly applicable activity that will help you do that. And it's a mnemonics exercise. Now, mnemonics are brain exercises or memory exercises that help us remember difficult things in our speeches. And this one is called the Method of Locus. And it has to do with memorizing a sequence or an order of items that might be difficult for you. And what you do is you visualize a location that you're very familiar with. It could be your drive from your house to your work. It could be the route you take from your bed up to your front door in the morning. It could be the route you take, the walk you take every day with your dog. And as you are visiting this familiar route in your mind's eye, you place one of these items in order, each of these items in order along the route, so that by the end of the route, you have every item placed somewhere on the route. And in your mind's eye, all you need to do is take a stroll down this route and you will see all these items placed strategically along this route. And it will help you remember. So if there are, for instance, 5 categories in your presentation, you can place each one of these categories somewhere on some stop along this route so that in your mind's eye, all you have to do is walk down this route and you will see the order of your presentation. So this kind of sequencing will really give you a great leg up in memorizing your presentation. Let's go on to the E of the Moxie Method, which stands for enjoy the experience, or how do you overcome those nerves so you can really enjoy the experience of presenting? How do you override that ancient part of your brain that's telling you you need to get off the stage or you'll die? Well, a lot of overcoming nerves is psychological. We know from statistics that more people fear public speaking than death. Here's a theory on stage fright that's thanks to Charles Darwin, who I call my wise partner in the study of freaking out. Humans are social animals, and we're hardwired to worry about our reputation. Public speaking can cause a threat reaction when we fear that we're going to be seen as an idiot or we're going to be ostracized from a group from giving a really bad presentation. And this threat reaction, which is also called fight or flight, happens in a very permanent, very ancient part of our brain that's hard to control. Fight or flight is seen in a large range of animals, and I like to say most of those don't give speeches. So how do we fight this fight or flight? How do we learn to overcome it or adapt to it so that we can give our presentation? Well, I like to say it's time to fight dirty and trick your brain because your hypothalamus has had millions of more years than you to practice survival instinct. So you're going to need some tricks. So here's the directly applicable part of those tricks. First, change your point of view. Change your perspective. If you're afraid of public speaking, say to yourself, I love being on stage. This is a piece of cake. This is fun. You're capable of far more than you think. And here's a study that proves it. And it was published in the American Psychological Journal last month, actually. And it said that people who tell themselves to get excited rather than trying to relax can improve their performance during stress-inducing activities. And the study author said that people have a really strong intuition that trying to calm down is the best way to cope with anxiety. but that's really difficult and it can be ineffective. When people are anxious and they try to calm down, they're thinking about all the things that can go wrong. But if you tell yourself instead that you're excited and you pump yourself up, you're thinking about all the things that can go well. It makes sense, right? So it really does pay to stay positive and say you're excited. And even if you don't believe it at first, saying, I'm excited, will increase your authentic feelings of excitement. Also, during your presentation, you can dive into your audience, ground yourself, feel your feet gripping the floor, and imagine you have roots that go deep into the earth. Now imagine that those roots are giving you energy and stability and power. Belly breathe, like I taught you to do earlier, and dive into your audience. Not really, but imagine that your audience is a pool. Dive into their energy. Aim your energy outward and lose yourself in giving your message to the audience. And the last tip I want to give you is a visualization that will really help you dive into your audience and enjoy your presentation. I want you now to close your eyes and imagine something that's coming up in the near future for you that you might be nervous about. It might be a presentation. It might be a sports event. It might be a performance. And in your mind's eye, I want you to see yourself at this event. Now I want you to take 3 deep inhales in. And with each inhale, I want you to breathe in excitement. And with each exhale, I want you to breathe out doubt. So let's do it together. Breathe in excitement, breathe out doubt. One more time, breathe in excitement, breathe out doubt. Last time, breathe in excitement, breathe out doubt. Now you're going to breathe in, and on your exhale, you're going to say, I'm excited. Let's do it. Breathe in. I'm excited. Did it change your feelings at all towards the presentation? You have my permission to use this visualization in this activity as many times as you need before a presentation. This little visualization can really start to tweak the way you feel about an upcoming event. Maybe it even already started to change your attitude. I want to leave you with this thought. Most people think of a presentation as an obligation or something that can't be avoided, but this is really the wrong attitude. Instead, think of it as an opportunity to make a difference. Every presentation is a chance to contribute, and we all live for an opportunity to contribute. It's what makes us human. We can apply this to this art of presentations as well. And I say art because I really think that the best presentations are works of art because they deeply connect with an audience. But when we play it safe, we're not making art, we're painting by numbers because our presentations lack connection and they lack any kind of ability to change an audience. Today, more than ever, you have an opportunity to make a connection, contribute to change, and create art. So here's to changing the world, one presentation at a time. Thank you so much. I want to open this up to questions. If you have any questions, I want to thank you for spending your morning with me if you don't. I also want to encourage you to contact the Moxie Institute when you and your team are ready to take your presentation skills to the next level and capture the hearts and minds of your audience. So I have time for a few questions if anybody wants to ask. So I'm seeing a question here, I don't like my voice. What can I do about it? Well, I hear this a lot from clients. I don't like my voice. What can I do about it? You can train to use your voice just like Margaret Thatcher did. Hopefully, we're all our worst critics. We are all going to be harder on ourselves than most other people are. But you can really train your voice, and you're going to see a much richer, resonant, deeper, more powerful voice of leadership if you learn to train it. And this can be done through any of our trainers here at the Moxie Institute, through myself, or through taking vocal lessons. Let me see, any other questions? Somebody said, how do I use this visualization? Use the visualization whenever you start to feel butterflies in your stomach, whenever you have that thought, oh my gosh, I have this presentation coming up. Just close your eyes quickly and use this visualization. Inhale confidence, exhale doubt. Excellent. Thank you so much for spending your morning with me. I look forward to hearing from all of you and see you at the next webcast. Take care.